There is a sweet spot between overworking and underperforming that I don't really hear that many people talk about. So in this video, I want to talk about 6 ways to approach career advancement and increase the opportunities you have available to you without busting your butt harder and burning out. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Hannah and I am so happy you're here. I care very deeply about building happier and more fulfilling careers. I myself have had quite the twisty and turny career path so far. I was kind of your stereotypical high performer throughout school and into my early career path. I was really motivated by fancy job titles and brand names and promotions and salaries. And I got all of those things. I found that I was consistently unhappy. I was really frustrated at work. I cared way too much about problems that I couldn't solve. And I was deeply lacking motivation to grow and to do more. So 3 challenging career pivots later, I found that I have never quite stopped searching for work that feels more meaningful to me. And along that journey, I've held quite a number of roles. I've been a recruiter. I've been a job seeker, obviously. I've been a hiring manager. Most recently, I was the head of job seeker marketing for a global recruitment marketplace. And now I'm a career educator to over 350,000 people online, which is so amazing. I am so thankful to have this be my reality right now. And oh my God, my perspective on careers has completely changed since the beginning. If you consider yourself to be an ambitious person, highly motivated by personal achievement, you may have experienced so far that it is hard to pursue success and financial gain without burning out and sacrificing your well-being along the way. Being a high performer often gets you handed more work, and in most cases, getting a promotion requires you to go above and beyond and take on more than what is within the scope of your role. And when the Wall Street Journal warns that companies are planning to dole out harsher performance reviews in 2024 and raise performance standards across the board for employees, well, it's just freaking hard to be a corporate employee right now. There are kind of 2 conflicting camps of career advice that prescribe how you can address this. And the first is very traditional. It's hustle culture. It's put your head down and get to work. It's hard work speaks for itself and will lead to success. And on the flip side, we've got the opposite. We've got lean out entirely. We've got set extreme boundaries and, prioritize lazy girl jobs and make your work as small of a role in your life as possible. I don't really think that either of these are right. And I believe that there's an approach in the middle that I like to call calculated ambition. It's this idea of strategically applying your ambition when it can yield the most benefit to you and adamantly protecting your peace otherwise. So according to the pie theory of success, your performance at work actually only accounts for 10% of your career advancement. 30% is accounted for by your image, also known as your personal brand, and 60% of your career advancement is accounted for by your exposure, or who knows about you and the work you're doing. So in this video, we're going to talk about how you can actually apply calculated ambition. You can use discipline and hard work selectively to be that top performer. You can use tools and strategies to create this powerful image, increase your exposure, and most importantly, protect your frickin' peace. And if this topic is exciting, it would mean the world to me if you could like this video and subscribe. I don't know if you know this, but this is my first YouTube video, very exciting. And that just helps me understand what kind of topics you guys like, what I should keep creating more content about, and it'll keep me coming back to YouTube to share advice about how we can build happier and more fulfilling careers. Alrighty, the first approach, and I did say this was the most important, protecting your peace. So before you do literally anything else, the first step is to focus on separating your career goals from these kind of like traditional benchmarks of career success. Because in our careers, especially in our early careers, it's very easy to suffer from shiny object syndrome, where we get so wrapped up in the idea of achieving something that we fail to assess if it's really the right fit for us. And we often overlook the flaws in favor of the ultimate outcome of that achievement. We also may not know ourselves very well or really understand the things that are important to us, the values that we hold, which makes it really easy to fall into this trap of career advancement for the sake of career advancement. Like, how many of you guys have gotten promoted, ended up with a full team of people because you thought that was the right thing to do, and then realized that you actually hate it? This type of career pursuit can quickly lead to burnout and misaligned work if we are not careful. A good way to pressure test this is to ask yourself, would you want your boss's job? It can be helpful to think of your career a bit like a map. If you are just driving aimlessly, maybe you're on target to end in Oklahoma, but based on who you are and the types of things you like to do and the people you like to hang out with and the things you're interested in, you'd actually be a lot more suited for Colorado. You just don't really know that about yourself and you don't know how to get there. Understanding your values and your career values and the goals based on them can be the thing that acts like your GPS, pointing you in the direction that is best suited for you. And it's okay if you don't know your career goals. I certainly didn't for a long time and I still am working on them every year, but building that self-reflection habit and starting to understand yourself and your values is the thing that points you in the right direction to set aligned career goals. There's a great exercise from a book called What Color is Your Parachute? It's called the 5 flower petals exercise, and we're not going to go through it in full detail because I'm pretty sure it's 75 pages, but it is worthwhile to complete if you want to check the book out. I'll link it in the video description. But let's talk through it at a high level. So the idea of this exercise is that it asks you prompting reflection questions about 7 different areas of your career. Number 1, your top work goals, your interests, the problems you're interested in solving, the different causes you care about. Number 2 are the sectors, industries, or fields of work you're most interested in. 3 are the transferable skills that you feel the best when you use. 4 are the types of people that you might want to work with and their qualities. 5 are your ideal work conditions, maybe how your organization would be structured, the structure of your week and your time commitments, the size of the team that you might work on. 6 is the level of responsibility and preferred salary that you would need. And 7 is where in the world geographically you might want to be. So the results of completing this exercise will be almost a rubric that you can use to compare new potential opportunities against. So we've talked about goal setting. Now the second part of protecting your peace is learning how to set boundaries. Let's back up for a second. What even is a boundary really? Well, boundaries are like the lines that we draw in the sand related to other people. The act of setting boundaries intends to prevent you from draining your energy and your well-being so that you can show up as your best self in the areas of life that you need it, like at your job, which your company is paying you for. It might be a common misconception, but jobs don't actually pay you to just do whatever your boss tells you to do. They're probably paying you for some specific output or set of responsibilities, and probably for collaborating with other people in order to achieve that output. And in order to collaborate with other people, you probably have to learn to say no when it matters so that you can focus on what your company has deemed important. So there's 2 types of boundaries that are important to consider. And the first are your hard boundaries. These are your non-negotiables. You are not going to flex. They're like the hills that you'll die on in terms of what you will and won't accept at work. For example, maybe you have therapy appointments every Thursday at a set time and you are blocking it on your calendar and nobody is allowed to schedule meetings with you for that slot. Or you go no contact on weekends or vacations and you don't check your email and you don't respond to text messages and you let everybody know you will not be available. And then soft boundaries, on the other hand, are more like flexible guidelines. They're boundaries that you like to adhere to, but depending on the circumstances, you may be more willing to flex. So this could be your workday ends at 5, but if there's something really high priority that's due the next day, or your colleague needs help and they're on California time and you're in New York, you may be willing to hop on a call after hours and help them out. Now, this idea of applying hard work selectively may ask that you flex some of these soft boundaries. So it is important to be able to differentiate which boundaries are hard, which ones truly are not flexible, and which ones you can give a little bit. Now, it's really easy to talk about having boundaries, but how do you actually go about holding them at work? Well, some examples could be saying no to projects when your capacity is full, or to work that's outside of your job description. It could be setting and adhering to work hours. It could be using your PTO, not sharing your social media accounts with your coworkers, negotiating realistic deadlines for tasks, requesting accommodation if you have a disability, setting up office hours for your coworkers' random questions so they don't just throw them at you all day, or establishing a set of instructions for for any requests that your coworkers make of you. But keep in mind that different people have different boundaries and they'll have different things that they are willing to flex on. So it is so important to have conversations with your coworkers and set expectations so that your boundaries are respected. And when you feel like your boundaries are being crossed, tactical communication is your strongest tool. Try saying things like, my workload is currently at capacity, taking on more tasks would likely delay or affect the quality of my existing projects. Can we prioritize or redistribute some of my tasks? Or I do my best to close my laptop when my workday ends at 5 p.m. so I'll respond to emails the next business day. Or this task is outside of the scope of my current role and may detract from my core responsibilities. Can we discuss how it aligns with my position? Okay, now that our piece is nice and protected and respected, let's talk about performance. We cannot talk about career advancement without acknowledging that it requires high performance. Like if you want to grow upward and outward and take on new responsibilities and adjust your career in a way that feels more aligned, you have to know how to be able to do good work. And if you don't know how to do good work, that's okay. That's where everybody starts. There are so many resources out there, online learning resources that can help give you the skills to do so. Now, I don't know about you, but in this corner of the internet, we believe that our skill sets are not fixed. They are variable, they are malleable, and with focus and effort, we can go out there and learn whatever it is that we want to learn. Now, because high performance will sometimes require going above and beyond, we can think about using hard work in two important ways. The first is selective, and the second is focused. By selective, I mean selective periods of intensity when you can clearly see what the benefit to you will be. This could look like mapping all of your projects to company or personal goals and delegating and deleting the rest. It could be taking on extra work that is part of a promotion plan and aligned on with your boss. It could be investing time outside of work to learn a new higher paying skill. It could be taking on additional responsibilities that will push your career in the direction you want it to go. Or you could own a significant project that's bigger than your current scope, but it's going to look great on your resume and will help you land a new job. You could take on a side project to gain new experience, or you could prioritize, delegate, and delete different work. And the second part of this is focus, meaning you apply your intensity specifically to one project at a time, meaning you can power through it without drowning and get it done. There's a concept from this book called slower productivity that digs into this idea where focused intensity can lead to deeper concentration and a higher quality work output, leading to more significant achievement and reduced stress. Okay, so we've talked about how to set your goals and your boundaries, how to use hard work selectively and in focused ways to be that high performer. Now let's talk about the next piece of that pie theory, or your image. Also known as your personal brand, it's basically how people see you and what kind of work they associate you with. And I always like to tell people that whether you are doing anything about it or not, you already have a personal brand. When I was younger, I was the kid who would always raise my hand and volunteer for literally anything, whether it was getting on stage during a performance or being the victim in a magic show or being the team leader for a school project. In fact, I actually was awarded the Point Shark Award in high school for ruthlessly negotiating the project points I thought I deserved on every project. It was a well-deserved award. And as you can guess, those skills have served me pretty well in a corporate environment. Like, I've never been super afraid to advocate for myself, to do the work that I was the most interested in, or to get the promotion that I thought I deserved, or the raise that I really freaking wanted. Let's level set on this. If you are new to self-promotion, which everybody is at a certain point, it is not unusual that it feels really uncomfortable. Like, it's awkward. It feels like you're bragging. It feels like something nobody wants to hear. And a lot of traditional career advice messaging tells us that hard work will speak for itself and we should just put our head down and focus on delivering the best we can. If anyone's ever outright given you this advice, I want to kick them. There's a reason that the global marketing industry is $1.7 trillion. This idea of promotion or publicly championing the value of any product or company or celebrity or business or athlete or whatever it is, like, that is such a fundamental part of that person or thing being able to achieve success. So why should you, someone who is trying to commoditize and monetize your skills and abilities, why should you be any different? The idea of self-promotion and personal branding is about harnessing your public image so that it tells a story about you want it to tell in order to open up access to the opportunities you want to access. There's kind of two main benefits that I think of when I think of advocating for yourself. First is that it keeps influential people in your life informed about what you're working on and the things you're achieving and the kind of value that you know how to drive for a business. And second, it's what establishes your reputation both internally among your coworkers and leaders and externally among people that might potentially want to hire you. Like, this is how you associate yourself with work you want to be known for and work you want to do. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but self-promotion is not an option anymore. It's a requirement, but it can be challenging to do without rubbing people the wrong way. And this is especially true for women. Research done by a Harvard lecturer named Hanna Bowles actually found that when women advocate for themselves in the way that is more typically associated with how men advocate for themselves, they are much more likely to face backlash. So how can you do this without rubbing people the wrong way? Well, there is an approach that I like to think of as peacocking. And the idea is that when people see a peacock out in the world displaying its tail feathers, they don't look at it and think about how obnoxious it is and that it's bragging and it's really flaunting its endowments. They look at it and think it's magnificent. It's a beautiful piece of nature and something to be admired. So this Harvard research yielded a more effective approach than just forcefully advocating for what you want. And it's when you can articulate your achievements framed around the way that they're going to benefit others. So there's a couple ways you can actually do this in practice at work. The first, and I think the most obvious, is doing this in team meetings in the name of keeping other people informed. So for example, you might share, I've just completed the A/B testing on our new landing page design. Early results show a 15% increase in conversion rates. I'd love to schedule a brief session to walk the team through the findings and discuss potential next steps. You just snuck in a great little achievement in there in the name of helping everybody be better at their job. The second obvious place is in one-on-ones with your manager. These meetings are often used as a way for you to get help with problems, but if you're always bringing up problems, your manager's gonna come to associate you with problems. So you can use this peacocking as a way to set context for the question you need help with. So for example, you could say, over the past quarter, I automated our reporting processes, which is saving the team roughly 10 hours per week. I've received positive feedback so far, and I did identify an opportunity to build out an automated integration between tools to ensure more data accuracy. What is the best process for getting new tools like this approved by the company? You see how we're using it to kind of tee up the question, talk about what we've done so far to get us to the point we're at now. The third place you should absolutely peacock, hands down the best place to do it, is during your annual performance review. Like, this is literally set up for you to go show off your accomplishments. You can do this by connecting your accomplishments back to your goals and the value they created for the company, so you can show you're always thinking about growth. For example, you could say, this year I led cross-functional efforts to revise our onboarding and training programs, which has sped up the ramp time for new hires by 30%. Looking forward, I'd like to build the foundation for an employer branding strategy to make our company more competitive when we're recruiting talent. I'm excited about taking on more leadership responsibility within talent acquisition. And the last place is during those skip level meetings with your higher ups, making sure you're always tying your accomplishments back to company priorities or big initiatives so you can show your value within the broader company. For example, you could say, the customer retention program we launched last quarter has reduced churn by 20%. I'm exploring ways to expand this success across other product lines. And the last but very not least pillar of calculated ambition is increasing your exposure so the right people know who you are and what you do. Before we even talk about exposure strategies, we have to get to the foundation. Gotta talk about communication skills. Any positive or negative experience you've had in a work environment can probably be boiled down to how the communication was handled. Communication is quite literally the foundation of everything we do, like how we collaborate with our coworkers, how we sell to clients, how we negotiate for a raise, how we interview for a new job, how we advocate for ourselves, how we make friends. And it's something that we so quickly take for granted, and I feel like doesn't get talked about as much as it should. None of us are born knowing how to communicate effectively. We're all starting from zero at some point. Some of us receive better training than others, but it is a skill that everyone can learn. I could create quite literally an entire video just on communication skills, but the message I want to impart on you today is that investing into building your communication skills can help reduce friction that you experience at work. Communication expert Christy Hedges gave a workshop with Harvard Business Review to talk about the 5 areas of corporate communication that are so important, and I think these are worth considering when you reflect on your own communication skills and how to go about improving them. So the first is presence, and maybe you've heard about this idea of executive presence. It's kind of ambiguous. Like, does anybody really know what it actually means? The idea with presence is it's your ability to command a room, to persuade or influence others. It's how you show up and how you're perceived by other people, and it can have a really drastic impact on your success in your career. It can affect the impact you're able to drive in a job. It can affect your credibility with other people, with hiring managers, with clients, and it can impact your influence externally with people above and below you. You can influence your presence with other people by adjusting things in a conversation like your body language, your tone of voice, your cadence, your confidence, your active listening. The second important area of corporate communication is knowing how to tailor your message depending on who you're talking to. And this is something that I have literally seen people across all levels struggle with. The thing to think about is like, what information does an entry-level person need compared to an executive? If you're talking about a project, that entry-level person is going to need information that is detailed, it's in the weeds, it's instructional. That executive level person is going to need high-level recap. They're going to need to know how it affects other parts of the business. They're really going to need the main ideas and the open questions. They don't need the details. Okay, number 3 is building relationships. It's wild that this is controversial, that people argue it's not worth your time at work to build relationships with your coworkers, but relationships are like the entire basis of working at a company with other people. Like, it's literally the foundation of work and collaboration. It is so much easier to work with other people when you have positive and collaborative and respectful relationships. It's also just good for your mental health to have friends at work. So to build your skills here, try learning how to internally network with your coworkers, how to build rapport in little moments, maybe before a meeting or when you're walking down the hallway, and how to treat others with respect and empathy, the way that you would want to be treated. Number 4 is getting buy-in. The outcome of building relationships and learning how to tailor your message for your audience is that it can impact how likely you are to get buy-in on your ideas. Collaborating at work really just means pitching and selling ideas that you have and trying to get other people to agree with your idea so that they do the portion of work that you need them to do so your idea can move forward. And the 5th area of corporate communication skills are receiving and delivering feedback. And feedback is an area where so much can go wrong so quickly, but it's so important. Like, receiving feedback is really important because you need to be able to take the emotion out of it so you can use feedback to improve your output, but you also need to be able to advocate for yourself if you feel you're being treated unfairly. And giving feedback is important because you need to make sure your coworkers are improving and making adjustments that will make your work in turn easier. So once you've got your communication foundations in place, exposure really comes from building strategic relationships with the right people. So obviously this includes executives and like leadership and important decision makers. Consider who makes decisions surrounding your level or your compensation, who sets your goals, who assigns you work. Are there maybe leaders on other teams whose decisions kind of trickle down to your team and affect your work and responsibilities? Those are all great people to build relationships with. However, your visibility and status of life is not only affected by leadership, it's also impacted by your peers and people that are junior to you. Think about who is influential to you. Like, who do you rely on for collaboration? Who do you often need things from in order to get your work done? Who approves your work? Who is directly downstream or upstream from you? The people whose work influences you and who your work is influential to, those are all the people that are worth your while to build relationships with. Obviously, leaders are going to influence decisions made about your advancement, but your peers are going to influence the day-to-day of your experience at work and how easy of a time you have in accomplishing the things you've set out to accomplish. So as you build those relationships, try to understand their goals, their challenges, their motivations, which will give you ammo to align your work, maximize your impact, showcase your value, and ultimately drive everyone's work to success. So if you you've made it this far. Thank you so much for sticking around. This is my first YouTube video. We are so excited. Let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear a comment about what stood out to you, what was surprising, what are you excited about, and definitely what you want to hear more of. And remember, what matters is that you're trying. Keep going. I'm proud of you.